Welcome back to the Ultra Sharp Podcast. I'm your host Andrew, and we're here again to talk about some more about the wonders of Tokusatsu. So today we'll just be talking about last week's Ultraman Blazar episode, Escape, featuring the EMP extraterrestrial Gibalga, some updates to the Godzilla Battle Line game, some news about upcoming toys, and lastly, upcoming events that you might want to anticipate for the future of our podcast. And I just want to explain some technical changes that will be happening starting the episode that have changed since last episode. And that is that I will very unlikely be speaking off script anymore, since last time it was really long and dragged out. But unless I'm hosting with someone else for the podcast, then it will just mainly be on script. Additionally, I will be toning the background audio down a little bit, just so that I sound more audio and the music isn't too obtrusive. But yeah, enough of the technical stuff. I'm really excited to talk about the latest episode, so let's get into it. And first off, I just want to state that this episode has exceeded all of my expectations from what I saw from the episode's preview last week. And I didn't mention it last episode, but in the back of my mind I was a bit unsure about the Kaiju design for Gibalga. And you know, he's a meteorite that turns into a Kaiju. That's pretty cool in itself, but I've seen that a few times in other shows and I was sort of hesitant to see how they would evolve it this time. Sort of similar to Godzilla -1 at first. But Godzilla was amazing, it was so cool. The Kaiju ended up being one of my favorite monsters of the new generation era because of its like almost wild and goofy nature. And you could really compare it to even the Spot from Across the Spider-Verse by how like they're both really goofy and comedic, but they're insanely powerful in itself. And we could sort of refer this to Alien Gapia from the Ultraman Orb movie. Both of them were really powerful enemies against the Ultraman, but they were comedic and sort of didn't really see the tone of the battle. And I really like that type of villain. We also saw that in Mechagodzilla too, though that was really a minor antagonist, a very minor antagonist for Ultraman Trigger. But yeah, Gibalga also makes these weird like cosmic, alien, starry, whatever synonyms there are to extraterrestrial. It makes those sounds as its roar. It's very different from the Kaiju that we've gone so far, and I really like that. And I was right about this being a potential two-parter. As I said earlier in the last episode, we were reaching the end of the first arc, and Gibalga was the last Kaiju that was shown in the opening. So yeah, I was right. This was a little bit why I was worried at first, given how powerful it really is. But it's really proven to be a formidable foe to Blazar. But let's also talk about Retsu. Retsu was the general of the GGF who monitors Guard. This was the character I talked about earlier, how I said that he hasn't come back since like episode 2, and I was really excited to see what he had for this episode. And although I didn't really get as much as I wanted from him, we did actually see some deeper characteristics from him that I didn't expect to see from him so early, or at least in this pace. And this episode, we actually see a new important member of GGF. His name I can't remember, but Chibi Blazar will explain that for us. But anyways, he's a lot stricter than Retsu, and it seems like he's his higher up, and a lot more critical of Scar Team too. We see him judge how Earth-Garen ran away from Gibalga despite showing signals of an EMP pulse, which makes me curious to his role in the future episodes. And Retsu's frustration is clear with the Scar team, like I guessed, but not entirely for the reason that I had thought before. Instead, that frustration comes with how, after every failure of Scar to defeat the Kaiju before Blazar, he looks worse and worse in the eyes of his superiors. And I'll love to see how this inner conflict develops and how this might evolve and include the Scar team themselves for upcoming parts. And we finally were revealed to who was fighting who in the last episode. As a recap from the last episode's podcast, Blazar and Gento were fighting amongst each other right before they were to kill the Maga, and there was a lot of debate between all the Ultra fans between who was stopping who. And that was formally answered here, and that Gento was actually the one trying to kill the Maga. We see that Blazar was actually able to take control of Gento momentarily in both his Ultraman and his human form, and that they're now conflicted in how they fight because of the deadliness of Gabalka. I really like how they evolved this conflict between the two, not only just like by what we saw of them like punching each other and all that, but by the way that Blazar even lifts Gento up into the air to de-transform him. Sorry if I sounded a little bit weird in that last sentence. My throat started getting really bad, but I'm back. But yeah, Gento was carried off by Blazar in the final scene, and I really liked the comedic motif of that. It sort of looked like he was sort of a marionette being carried off. But, you know, just some more wacky affairs between Ultraman and Blazar. Nothing special with any of his moves. It's sort of similar to how we saw in Nishikagashi Part 1. Like, usually we'd see Blazar do a new move every episode, but it seems like the first episode of the two-parters are always like they don't show anything new that Blazar can do. But yeah, this was a very good episode. I really liked the fights that they had in this part. I rated this as an S tier in my tier list. I was gonna talk a little bit about this tier list last episode, but I decided to cut it out. I'll just show a quick picture of it, just for reference now. But yeah, that was episode 11 of Ultraman Blazar Escape. And now, we will move on to our weekly Kaiju Mania. Today's Kaiju Mania features the legendary space dinosaur Zeton. Also from the original Ultraman series. This is the greatest foe of Ultraman in all of history, so let's have no hesitation and jump right in. Zeton is known as the one to defeat the great Ultraman with his powerful Zeton Final Beam, which preferably I would choose a different name, but it shoots a beam with power tenfold in reciprocal to any energy attacks done to itself. In addition, the Space Kaiju Zeton has immense defense abilities, with instantaneous teleportation, and energy barriers to protect it from any of Ultraman's attacks. Fun fact, in the original show, Zeton only protects his sides, while in Ultraman Max, his barrier extends to the top of his head. Zeton doesn't need his final attack to be a formidable foe though, as he has his trademarked trillion-degree fireball, bursts of explosive star shells, and red-hot energy lasers, each as deadly as the other. Although he's labeled as a space dinosaur, Zeton spots a beetle-like appearance, and this is apparent in many of his different iterations in Ultraman history. As of now, Zeton has as much as 8 different variants, with some being bulkier, others being more agile, and one being a literal planet destroyer. But he's always had one primary goal, and that is to stop the Ultraman in their tracks. Only great perseverance and plot twists can save the Ultraman from this beast. Zeton is the greatest foe of Ultraman, and I highly suggest you check him out further. And also, fun fact, why might you ask that Zeton is called the Space Dinosaur? Well, this is actually because he was not meant to be the final enemy of Ultraman. that was actually going to go to a different kaiju that I can't remember right now. But that kaiju was more of a space dinosaur than Zenton, but they switched him out last minute, so he got the title now. But that's all for Kaiju Mania, and we're gonna go back to our daily program. Welcome to our second weekly Toku Talk. That's right, I've thought of a name that's probably already taken by someone else. Today, we're going to talk about a few miscellaneous news, including one that I've just learned of as of recording this episode. First off, Godzilla Battle Line, a sort of popular mobile game, has gotten 2 new characters, that being Gamera and Gyao's Rebirth. I have no idea what this game is, but the design does look pretty cool. But anyways, we'll just move on to the next news. The Tomica series have collaborated with Ultraman to make 4 custom miniature cars, themed to an Ultraman each. We have Ultraman Tiga, Ultraman Zero, Ultraman Blazar, and Ultraman G, all spotting beautiful miniature sports cars. Now I'm not a car person, but I'd really like to own one of these if they made life-size versions, because they do look pretty damn cool. Now it does make sense why these Ultraman were chosen. These are very popular Ultraman around Asian countries other than Japan, especially in countries like China, Singapore, and the Philippines. And these cars are exclusive to the East and Southeastern Asian countries other than Japan, so sadly we will not be seeing them here in the US anytime soon. We have also just gotten news that Rico Fardo and Nicholas Andrew Louis, the voices of Bando and Terawaki from Ultraman Blazar, will be a part of the NYCC Ultraman panel later this year. I myself have watched a good amount of the English dub episodes of Ultraman Blazar, and everybody in the cast is really perfect for their role. If you're gonna go to the con or are in the area and also love Ultraman Blazar, then I highly suggest that you get the chance to meet him. It also looks like that the Frieza-esque opponent from past Blazar stage shows will be back for the live spectacle as a potential stage show, so, you know, that's even more of an incentive to go. Now, if only they brought Ultraman to Texas, then I would be ecstatic. And we will end off our Ultra Sharp podcast episode with our perspectives for Ultraman Blazar episode 12, Let's Go Blazar. The EMP Space Kaiju, Gibalga, continues with his rampaging, and it looks like he's gonna be even more aggressive than ever. From the few quick scenes that we get to see of Scar's analysis of Gibalga, it looks like that they're devising a way to end Gibalga's barrage of Ultra EMPs. Ultraman Blazar also gets a new weapon, accompanying his Nichikagashi saw, and he will now be wielding a lightning harnessing blade made of... can't say. Anything I say now are spoilers that were leaked from the information from the toy line, so I can't say just yet, but I'm really excited to tell y'all what it's made of later on. Or if y'all watch it for yourselves, then you'll see too. But let's just say that he might be using the powers of another old kaiju in the past to defeat Gibalga. Whatever that old kaiju was, you'll just have to guess. You know what? Put your guesses in the comments below. That, you know, brings engagement, helps this channel grow, and helps me make more content later on. We've seen Scar devise plans to defeat the weekly kaiju before, but they've never really completely worked out without Blazar assisting. So I'm once again hopeful that the Scar team will at least be successful this round mission. And as I'm speaking in the point of view of me still in the writing phase, as you know, I'm reading from the script. So I have to say that I'm already more excited about how this Ultra Sharp podcast will go compared to the first podcast episode. And as of me speaking right now, I feel like it might be a little bit of the same because of how much I'm stuttering, but you won't be hearing that because I'm cutting a lot of it off. But if I'm right and this episode does turn out to be a success, then you'll definitely see my pridefulness in the comment sections. But thank you all for joining us in this episode, and I hope to see you again for the Ultra Sharp podcast, where we talk about Ultraman, Godzilla, and anything Toku related. Thank you everyone for joining, and we'll see you in the next Ultra Sharp podcast. Oh yeah, you might want to be here for episode 4. We're gonna have a guest that day. It's gonna be really cool.